All right, take 3. Sails are not light. Oh man, we're almost there. That's it. Here it is. So that is the luff tape repair that they did. Cutting Dyneema with scissors. A knife works so much better. All right, so I had torn my mainsail near the number 2 reef kringle, and it really is my fault. But I figured I could probably repair it myself, but I wanted my nice main to stay nice and be done by someone who really kind of knew what they were doing when it came to sail repair. So let's get this out. I'll throw a picture up where I tore it, and then we'll see what they did. So you can see here on the luff, you got kind of the luff tape. There's a luff rope, and then the plastic mast slider. So the number 2 reef kringle, and essentially what I think is I used the second reef a ton in this main, and I probably didn't have the correct halyard tension, Cunningham tension, and probably some bang on at some points that really just put a whole lot of stress on that number 2 reef kringle right there at the mast. And that's probably what tore it. So anyway, I'm glad it wasn't much more than that. We caught it pretty early. And so now we're gonna get it back on the boat, go from there. So as far as battens go, it's a little thicker to one end versus the other. And so that just gives it the proper amount of flex with the thicker end towards the middle. The batten pocket is Velcro with a nice pull tab. And so we'll just slide that in. There we go. Fold it over. It's got some nice reinforcement tape there. And we'll push it in. There we go. Velcro. There's your pull tab. Batten's in the pocket. So let's just keep going. And then we're just going to give it a loose roll. Because really, composite sails, the thing I'm worried about most is just UV damage, and you don't want any real permanent creases in there. It's just plastic, essentially, so you just don't want it to develop a memory. But in all honesty, it's a pretty old sail, but keep it in decent shape. Now that I've got the battens in, it's going to be harder to fold this into a carryable shape. Let's get this thing in. All right, well, we have wheeled the sail down here. So let's get it out of the little dock cart and onto the boat. See if I can do this without falling in. One hand for the boat, huh? Yep. So we'll just temporarily set it down there. Perfect. That'll stay there for a minute, and then we'll get everything ready. That's probably gonna be the last thing I do today is put the sail back on the mast. Other than that, let's open this up. So I've got the boom strap here, and then I've got my reefing lines just lashed to the boom right now, so they don't, not just laying around on the deck. But we'll go ahead and get this ready. I'm just gonna lay these back. Outhaul line, the outhaul slider. And so since the wind's coming from the south and blowing this way, I think it'll be easier if I just attach the clew of the sail first. And so let's look at that. Now for the clew, I've just used a soft shackle and then a lashing of Dyneema. It's a little bit overkill, but it gave me a little bit extra length to ease the clew out a little bit, just because the line that I'm using, and then attached to a metal shackle that'll run through the fitting back here. And so this is unbelievably strong. It holds the foot still down at the boom, which is nice. Different ways to do it. I'm sure that'll draw some criticism, but it works out pretty good. Let's get it attached. It's just a little fiddly, but no big deal. And we'll just get that hand tightened up in there right now. But since the wind's coming from the way it is right now, I can't turn the boat around. I just want the trailing edge of the sail to be controlled by something. before I start going putting mast sliders in. So let's take a look here at the mainsail and the mast sliders. So you can see we have just little plastic sliders attached with a loop of webbing that goes through kind of like a reefing kringle. There's at the base. This is up by the first reef point, it looks like. See if we can get that to focus. I like the plastic ones, they're plenty strong and they have enough of their own lubricity that you don't have to worry about lubing the mast nearly as much. But they just slide into the slotted fitting here. I've just got my Cunningham resting there, and then we'll end up putting this mast stopper and that'll go above this slotted fitting so that when the mast comes down, they all don't just come out of the widened slot and fall out. But otherwise it just slides right up and down the mast track. So pretty straightforward. All right, so first things first, let me get this Cunningham out of the way because that doesn't belong there. And then let me get the mast slider out of the way. Let's put that somewhere safe, like a pocket. And then let's get to the foot of the sail here, since I've made a giant mess now. Nothing ever goes as smooth when you're by yourself. If you have friends, that helps out tremendously. I have friends, but they're not here. So we're gonna take the mast car slider and just slide it down. The first two will actually fit below the track there. All right, so we'll bring you in once again. So the sail is down, just kind of resting on the boom right now, but this is the second reef kringle. This is where the tear had occurred. So kind of like I said earlier, put a little bit of luff tape on there, re-sewed my mast track slider on, and I think that's gonna work pretty good. So the luff rope was still in good shape, so now we're gonna flake this thing and get ready to put it under the bag. We've got the main back on the boom, back in the mast track, halyard attached. It is flaked, the reef lines are hooked back up properly. You can see now more of the lashing for the clew. It just eliminates having to use a shackle with a 90-degree turn. It works just fine, but it's just, I don't know. I've had a shackle that has seized up and I literally had to cut it off with bolt cutters, which I have on the boat, no problem. But I can always work with Dyneema line. I've got Dyneema on the boat. It's too easy. So you can see sail ties are on, nicely flaked. Battens are on top of the mast, so they're not gonna bend. She's an oldie but a goodie. Like, I mean, my goodness. Technora fiber, composite main, 250 square feet. It's a 13-foot boom, 13.5-foot boom actually. So you can see again the plastic sliders as they go in the mast track to stop her again. So we are back in action. All right, now next thing to do is get the sail cover on. This boat was set up by some guys who knew what they were doing, and it was set up for a symmetrical spinnaker, which is awesome. I shorthand sailed the boat a lot more than they did. They sailed with their crew, and so I am toying with the idea of flying this asymmetrical spinnaker on there. I think I said earlier, they set it up for a symmetrical spinnaker, and it's set up perfectly for that. There was a pole here on deck, the lines, so let's just look at them here at the mast. On the port side here, these are all fractional halyards, except for this one here. This is the main jib fractional spinnaker for the symmetrical spinnaker. This yellow line is the first reef. It runs from the boom through a block, through another turning block, just back to a cam cleat. This red line is the second reef, just runs down to another block, to a cam cleat that you can't see. This is the out haul. It's just a jam cleat here to a block. Cunningham. Now let's go around the other side. So originally they had a Harken racing foil on the head stay, and so they would run potentially 2 different head sails. I don't do that. I have 2 hanked on sails, and so I don't generally switch them, and if I do, I go up on the foredeck and do it myself. So this green line, which I've taken out, went to a deck organizer here, and then back to the clutch to the winch, was 1 Genoa. This was a 2nd Genoa. It is actually the masthead halyard, which is the middle line down the deck organizer and back. This cheek block was breaking, and it was essentially for the vang, which comes down. So vang, turning block. It was going through the cheek block there. Just to get it out of the way for now, I've added kind of a floating block over here. This side is by all means a work in progress. I'm not sure how I want to set it up yet, because my goal is to have a tack line that goes to the bow and back to the cockpit, so the tack line can be controlled through a clutch and to a winch to give it as much holding power as possible. Because before, I was running it to one of these jam cleats, and then I was having to turn it 90 degrees and put a safety turn on the winch. I don't think that's ideal. I want to be able to maintain all the controls I need for my upwind sailing, which is everything over here, the jib and Genoa, or excuse me, the jib and symmetrical spinnaker, mainsail halyard. Over here, I want everything to be spinnaker related, asymmetrical spinnaker related. So masthead topping lift. Let's see if I can get the blue in here. Tack line. So just through that cheek block, through the clutch, and I want to be able to use it with the winch. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do. Keep my halyard through a clutch, through a winch, tack line, clutch, winch. So I think we have the final setup for today finalized. And so the whole goal with this today, part of it was to reroute the lines so that I could run everything asymmetrical spinnaker related other than the tack lines, or excuse me, the sheets from the right side of the cockpit. Everything main, jib, and fractional symmetrical spinnaker is on the left side of the cockpit. Asymmetrical masthead halyard, tack line now runs through a clutch, through a cheek block, to a block at the front where the tack shackle is at, and that will allow me to ease and harden up the tack line and fly the clew of the sail higher or lower. I wanted that because previously I just had it coming back into a cam cleat, and I didn't have a great way to get it on a winch. And so if, 1, not the strongest, 2, if you wanted to adjust the tack line, as soon as you remove it from the cam cleat, you had 100% of that pressure that you were holding. So I wanted to have access to a winch to use it. Otherwise, topping lift, vang. The vang is now, I just put a floating block over here to redirect it back to a cam cleat. So let's move forward. So winch, clutches, deck organizer, masthead halyard, topping lift, tack line, boom vang. This will all probably change, but as we go forward, now runs just through a pad eye to a Ronstand block, super heavy duty Dyneema soft shackle, and a snap shackle just to hold it low on the deck. I think that's good. Well, we did it once, and that actually works out pretty good. It's a little janky, maybe, whatever, it works. And then the tack shackle over here is just secured to the pulpit. This actually allows for a pretty good tack line setup. It allowed me to fly the tack as low or as high as I needed to. Would it be more ideal with the sprit? Probably. But for now, that's what I got. And so it's working out. I think it's gonna be okay. It will probably change in the near future, and that's fine. But for today, it's what it is. So we got the main repaired, we got it back on the boat, we redid some of the lines, and I'm pretty happy with it. So it is unbelievably windy today. I've got a lot of other things to do, so we're gonna call it quits. Appreciate you coming along, take care, see ya.